morning sun rose over New Haven like it had for the past 20 years. Golden wheat fields stretched across the horizon, moving in waves under the gentle breeze. The air smelled of fresh bread from the bakeries and coffee from the corner shops. Children ran through the streets, their laughter echoing between the simple wooden houses. Jake Morrison stood on his front porch, watching his 8-year-old son Danny chase their neighbor's dog around the yard. The boy's brown hair caught the sunlight as he ran, his face bright with joy. Jake smiled and took a sip of his morning coffee. Life on New Haven was good. Simple but good. "Danny, come eat your breakfast," Lisa Morrison called from inside the house. She worked as a teacher at the local school and always made sure the children had proper meals before their day began. "5 more minutes, Mom," Danny shouted back, still running after the dog. Jake chuckled. The boy had too much energy for his own good, just like his father had been at that age. Before the war, before he decided to leave military service and start a family on this quiet colony world. The defense force Jake commanded was small. 200 men and women with basic weapons and old equipment. They were more like a police force than soldiers. New Haven had never seen real trouble. Pirates sometimes passed through this part of space, but they usually looked for richer targets. Down the street, other families were starting their day. Bobby Martinez helped his father load farming supplies onto their truck. Katie Williams skipped rope in her front yard while her mother hung laundry on the line. The whole colony felt like one big family. That was when the sky went dark. Jake looked up and felt his blood turn cold. Massive black ships filled the sky above New Haven. They were bigger than anything humans had ever built. Their surfaces were smooth and dark like polished stone. No markings, no lights, just solid, threatening metal blocking out the sun. "Lisa, get Danny inside now," Jake shouted, dropping his coffee cup. It shattered on the wooden porch as he ran toward the house, but it was too late. Beams of bright blue light shot down from the ships. They hit the ground all across the colony. Where the light touched, strange bubbles of energy appeared. Anyone caught inside the bubbles could not move or speak. They just stood there, trapped. Danny was caught in the middle of the yard. The blue light surrounded him like a cage. His eyes were wide with fear, but he could not call out. He could not run. "Danny!" Lisa screamed, running toward her son. Another beam caught her before she could reach him. She froze in place, her hand stretched out toward the boy. Jake grabbed his rifle from inside the house. His training kicked in. 20 years ago, he had been a soldier. He knew how to fight. But as he ran outside, he saw that fighting was useless. The aliens were already landing. They came down in smaller ships that moved without sound. When the ships opened, creatures stepped out that Jake had never seen before. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. Their faces had no expression. They moved with cold purpose. Jake raised his rifle and fired. The bullet hit one of the creatures in the chest. It stumbled but did not fall. Instead, it looked at Jake with large black eyes and raised a weapon of its own. The energy blast knocked Jake to the ground. Pain shot through his body, but he was still alive. The creature had not tried to kill him. It had only wanted to stop him from fighting. All around the colony, the same scene played out. Farmers with hunting rifles shot at the aliens. Mothers threw rocks and sticks. The colony's small defense force fought as hard as they could, but their weapons did no real damage. The aliens seemed more annoyed than hurt. Jake tried to stand up, but his muscles would not work right. The alien weapon had done something to his nerves. He could only watch as the creatures moved through the colony with terrible efficiency. They were not interested in the adults. They walked past grown men and women like they were not there. Instead, they went straight for the children. Every child between 5 and 15 years old was taken. The aliens used their blue light beams to trap the kids, then carried them to the transport ships. The children could not fight, could not scream, could not run away. Jake watched in horror as one of the creatures picked up Danny. His son's eyes found his father's face. Even trapped by the alien technology, Jake could see the fear and confusion in the boy's expression. Danny did not understand what was happening. He just wanted his parents to save him. But Jake could do nothing. He lay on the ground, his body betraying him as his son was carried away. The process took less than 2 hours. The aliens moved through every street, every house, every hiding place. Parents tried to fight. They tried to hide their children in basements and closets. Nothing worked. The aliens had technology that could see through walls and detect human life signs. When they were done, 847 children were gone. The alien ships rose back into the sky. Before they left, they sent a message to the colony's communication system. The voice that spoke was cold and mechanical, translated by computer into human language. The young humans will serve the Zephyrian Empire. They will be trained as workers and soldiers. Any attempt to rescue them will result in their immediate death. Do not follow us. Do not look for us. Accept your loss and continue your lives. Then, they were gone, leaving only empty sky and broken families behind. Jake finally managed to stand up. His legs shook, but he forced himself to walk to where Lisa stood frozen in the yard. The blue energy field was gone, but she had not moved. She stared at the empty spot where Danny had been playing just minutes before. "They took him," she whispered. "They took our boy." Around them, the sounds of grief filled the air. Parents called out the names of their missing children. Mothers fell to their knees and wept. Fathers punched walls and cursed the sky. Jake put his arms around his wife, but he had no words of comfort. What could he say? That everything would be okay? That they would get Danny back? He did not know if either was true. The aliens had come without warning and left without explanation. They had torn apart every family on New Haven, and they had done it so easily that Jake felt sick to his stomach. He was a soldier. He was supposed to protect people, but when his own son needed him most, he had been helpless, worse than helpless. He had been useless. As the sun set over New Haven that day, the colony was forever changed. The wheat fields still moved in the breeze. The houses still stood. But the laughter was gone. The joy was gone. In its place was something dark and growing. Jake Morrison looked up at the stars and made a promise. He would find his son. He would find all the children. And he would make the aliens pay for what they had done. He did not know it yet, but he was not alone in that promise. Across human space, the news of New Haven was spreading. And with it, something terrible was awakening in the human heart. Something the galaxy had never seen before. Something that would change everything. The message from New Haven reached Earth in 3 days. The quantum communication burst carried Jake Morrison's desperate plea across the stars. His voice was broken, raw from crying, as he told Earth what had happened to the children. President. Helen Carter sat in her office on the 92nd floor of the Federation building. She had been president for 6 years. She had dealt with trade wars, border disputes, and natural disasters. But nothing had prepared her for this. 847 children, she said to General Peter Collins, who stood beside her desk. They just took them, like they were picking fruit from a tree. Collins was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from his time as a Marine. He had fought in the border wars 20 years ago. He knew what humans could do when pushed. But this was different. This was about children. "We need to respond," Collins said. "Send the fleet. Find these Zephyrians and get our kids back." "With what?" Carter asked. "We have 12 battle cruisers and maybe 50 smaller ships. We don't even know where they went. Space is big, Peter, really big." Before Collins could answer, Carter's assistant rushed into the room. The young woman's face was pale with excitement and fear. "Madam President, there's an alien ship requesting permission to dock at Luna Station. They say they need to speak with you urgently about the New Haven incident." Carter looked at Collins. Neither of them liked surprises, especially not now. "What kind of alien ship?" "Corthanian, ma'am. It's Admiral Vexathara. She's requesting an emergency meeting." Carter knew the name. Vexathara was old, even by alien standards. She had been fighting wars when humans were still learning to make fire. The Corthanian species were warriors, but they were also honorable, If Vexithera wanted to talk, it was important. Bring her here, Carter said. Full diplomatic protection. 2 hours later, Admiral Vexithera walked into the Federation Council chambers. She was massive, nearly 8 feet tall, with thick purple skin and 4 eyes arranged around her large head. Battle scars covered her arms and chest. She wore no uniform, just simple robes that did nothing to hide her warrior's build. Carter stood to greet her, but Vexithera held up one of her 4 hands. Sit, President Carter. What I have to tell you will be easier to hear if you are sitting down. Carter felt a chill run down her spine. She sat back down. Collins remained standing, his hand resting on his sidearm out of habit. Admiral, we appreciate you coming. If you have information about the Zephyrians or our missing children— I do not have information about your children, Vexithera said, her voice deep and rumbling. I have come to warn you about yourselves. I don't understand. Vexithera moved closer to the table, her 4 eyes fixed on Carter with an intensity that made the president want to look away. Tell me, President Carter, do you know what happened? On Kepler 7 in the year 2387, Carter searched her memory. That was before my time. Some kind of incident with human mercenaries, I think. Yes, human mercenaries. 12,000 of them. They were working for various alien governments, including my own. Good fighters, professional. They followed orders and respected the rules of war. Vexithera paused, and Carter could see something like fear in the alien's multiple eyes. There was a peace conference on Kepler 7. The Drachmori wanted to end their war with the Centaurian Republic. Your mercenaries were hired to provide security. Everyone trusted humans to be neutral, fair, civilized. What happened? Collins asked. The Drachmori betrayed the conference. They had planned to kill the Centaurian diplomats and blame the humans. Make it look like your mercenaries had been bought off. They poisoned the water supply at the human barracks. 11,800 humans died in their sleep. Carter felt sick. She had never heard this story before. Why isn't this in our history books? Because what happened next was so terrible that every government in the galaxy agreed to keep it secret, Vexithera said. The 200 surviving humans did not try to escape. They did not call for help. They did not follow any military protocol. The alien admiral walked to the window that looked out over Earth's blue sky. Her reflection showed in the glass, distorted and frightening. They hunted down every Drachmori in 3 star systems. Not just soldiers. Everyone. Men, women, children, elderly. They did not use quick weapons. They used knives, clubs, their bare hands. They wanted the Drachmori to suffer. That's impossible, Collins said. 200 men against entire star systems? You do not understand how humans fight when they are truly angry, Vexithera replied. They did not sleep. They did not eat, unless forced to. They did not stop. They moved like ghosts through Drachmori space, killing everything they found. Carter stood up, her hands shaking. Admiral, you're talking about genocide. Yes. Complete genocide. When they were done, there were no Drachmori left alive anywhere in the galaxy. An entire species gone. Wiped out by 200 angry humans with hand weapons. You're lying, Collins said, but his voice lacked conviction. Vexithera turned back, to face them. I was there, General Collins. I saw the aftermath. Planets with no life left on them. Cities burned to ash. The humans had killed everything, even the animals. Even the plants. They salted the earth so nothing would ever grow again. Carter sank back into her chair. Why are you telling us this? Because the Zephyrians have made the same mistake the Drachmori made. They think humans are soft, civilized, predictable. They think taking your children will make you surrender. Won't it? Carter asked, though she already knew the answer. Vexithera's laugh was bitter and cold. President Carter, the mercenaries on Kepler 7 were just hired soldiers. They had no personal connection to the people who died. But the Zephyrians have taken human children, human babies. Do you understand what that means? Carter felt something dark stirring in her chest, a feeling she had never experienced before. It was rage, but deeper than rage. It was something primal and terrible. "You came here to warn us not to overreact," she said quietly. "No," Vexthera replied. "I came here to warn the galaxy about what you are going to do. I have sent messages to every government, every species, every world. I have told them to stay away from this conflict, to not get involved, to let you do what you must do. And what is that? You are going to kill them all," the alien admiral said simply. "Every Zephyrian in the galaxy. You will not stop until their species is extinct. And nothing anyone says or does will change your mind." Collins stepped forward. "Admiral, humans are rational beings. We have laws, rules of war. We won't commit genocide over your children." Vexithara interrupted. "General Collins, I have studied your species for 300 years. I have fought beside humans and against them. I know what makes you dangerous." She moved closer to Collins, towering over him despite his impressive size. "Other species fight for territory, resources, or honor. Humans fight for each other. And when human children are threatened, you become something else entirely. Something that makes even the darkest species in the galaxy flee in terror." Carter felt a change happening inside her. The diplomatic part of her mind was shutting down. The part that believed in negotiation and compromise was going quiet. In its place, something harder was growing. "How long do we have?" she asked. "Before what?" "Before we become the monsters you're describing." Vexithara looked at her with something that might have been pity. "President Carter, you became monsters. The moment you learned about New Haven. The only question now is how many Zephyrians will still be alive when you remember how to be human again." The alien admiral walked toward the door, then stopped. "I am sorry for your children," she said, "and I am sorry for what you are about to become. The galaxy will be a darker place when this is over." After she left, Carter and Collins sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Collins spoke. "She's wrong, isn't she? We're not going to commit genocide. We're better than that." Carter looked out the window at the peaceful Earth sky. Somewhere out there, human children were being held prisoner by alien monsters. Danny Morrison and Katie Williams and Bobby Martinez and hundreds of others. "Call the fleet commanders," she said quietly. "All of them. Emergency meeting in 1 hour." "What are you going to tell them?" Carter turned away from the window. Collins saw her face and took a step back. Her eyes held something he had never seen before, something cold and final. "I'm going to tell them to bring our children home," she said. "Whatever it takes." Ambassador Richard Stone straightened his tie as he walked into the Zephyrian council chamber. Behind him, 3 other human diplomats carried briefcases full of offers, trade agreements, technology transfers, territorial concessions. Everything the Federation had to give. The Zephyrian throne room was cold and dark. Black walls stretched up into shadows. Emperor Thexmor sat on a chair made of polished metal, his gray skin almost glowing in the dim light. His forearms rested on the armrests, long fingers tapping against the metal. "Your Majesty," Stone began, his voice echoing in the vast space. "The United Earth Federation comes before you in peace. We wish to negotiate for the return of our children." Thexmor's black eyes studied the humans like they were insects. When he spoke, his voice was like ice cracking. "You offer us what we can take by force. Your technology is primitive. Your resources are limited. Your territory is small and unimportant." Stone felt sweat on his forehead but kept his voice steady. "Your Majesty, we are prepared to offer substantial compensation, mining rights to 12 systems, our latest fusion reactor designs, exclusive trading agreements." "You misunderstand your position, human," the Emperor said. "We do not negotiate with lower species. We take what we want. We have taken your young. They will serve us well." One of the other diplomats, a woman named Carol Hayes, spoke up. "The children are innocent. They have done nothing wrong. Surely we can reach some agreement." Thexmor stood up slowly. He was taller than any human, his forearms making him look like some nightmare creature. "You want to see your children?" The humans nodded eagerly. Stone felt hope rising in his chest. "Very well," the Emperor said. He gestured to his guards. Bring 10 of them. Minutes later, Zephyrian soldiers dragged 10 human children into the throne room. Stone recognized some of them from the files he had studied. Katie Williams, the 7-year-old girl who liked to skip rope. Bobby Martinez, 9 years old, who helped his father on the farm. Danny Morrison, Jake's son, looking thin and scared. These are your precious children, Thexmore said. Look at them, see how weak they are, how helpless. The children were dirty and frightened. They had been crying. Some had bruises on their arms. Stone felt anger building in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. Please, he said. Let us take them home. We will give you anything you want. Thexmore smiled, showing sharp teeth. I will give you something instead. A lesson about your place in this galaxy. He raised one of his hands. Energy crackled between his fingers. No, Stone whispered. The energy beam hit Katie Williams first. The little girl had just enough time to look confused before the light consumed her. Then Bobby Martinez. Then Danny Morrison. Then the others. One by one until all 10 children lay dead on the cold floor. Stone fell to his knees. The other diplomats were crying. Carol Hayes was screaming. This is what happens when lower species make demands of their betters, Thexmore said calmly. Your children will work for us until they die. All of them. If you try to rescue them, we will kill them all at once. If you attack us, we will kill them slowly. If you annoy us further, we will broadcast their deaths for all to see. The Emperor sat back down on his throne. Now leave. And remember what you have learned here today. The human diplomats stumbled out of the throne room. In the ship heading back to Earth, Stone sat in silence, staring at his hands. They were shaking. He could not make them stop. What do we tell Earth? Carol asked, her voice broken. We tell them the truth, Stone replied. We tell them the Zephyrians just declared war on the human race. The broadcast reached Earth 12 hours later. Then it spread to every human colony, every ship, every outpost in known space. The footage of the children dying played on screens across human territory. President Carter watched it in her office. She had seen it 6 times already, but she could not stop watching. Each time she felt something inside her growing darker and harder. General Collins burst into her office without knocking. His face was red with rage. The Third Fleet has gone dark, he said. Admiral Rodriguez has stopped responding to orders. Long-range sensors show his ships moving towards Zephyrian space. Stop him, Carter said quietly. I can't. The Fifth Fleet is also moving. Captain Hayes took her entire battle group. They are not responding to recall orders. Carter turned off the screen showing the dead children. How many ships have we lost? Lost? Collins laughed bitterly. We haven't lost them. They are hunting. Every captain in the fleet has seen that broadcast. They know what the Zephyrians did to our kids. They will start a war we cannot win. We are already at war, Collins said. The Zephyrians made sure of that when they murdered children on live television. The only question now is how many of them we kill before we die. Across human space, the same conversation was happening in military bases, government offices, and civilian homes. But the humans were not talking about surrender. They were talking about revenge. Captain Susan Hayes stood on the bridge of the battleship UES Vengeance watching the stars. Her crew worked quietly at their stations. No one spoke about their orders. They all knew what they were going to do. Ma'am, her weapons officer said, we have a Zephyrian merchant ship on sensors, lightly armed, maybe 40 crew members. Are there children on board? Hayes asked. No, ma'am. Just adult Zephyrians. Hayes nodded. Destroy it. The merchant ship died in seconds. 40 Zephyrians who had never hurt a human child, who probably did not even know about New Haven. It did not matter. They were Zephyrians, that was enough. On the colony world of New Texas, Colonel Maria Santos gathered her Marines. They were assault troops trained for ground combat. They had no ships, no way to reach Zephyrian space. But there was a Zephyrian listening post on the edge of human territory. We move at dawn, she told her soldiers. No prisoners, No mercy. If it breathes and it's gray, you kill it. The Marines nodded. They had all seen the broadcast. They all knew what they had to do. At the Federation's main research facility, Dr. Nathan Price received new orders from the government. All restrictions on weapons research were lifted. All ethical guidelines were suspended. He was to develop new ways to kill Zephyrians. Lots of them. Quickly. Price had spent his career trying to make life better for humans. Medical research, clean energy, food, production. Now they wanted him to build tools of death. He looked at the photographs of the murdered children on his desk. Katie Williams smiled up at him from one picture, taken before the kidnapping. She had been learning to play piano. "Sarah," he called to his assistant, "cancel all my other projects. From now on, we work on weapons. Only weapons." "What kind of weapons, Doctor?" Price stared at Katie's photograph. "The kind that makes sure no Zephyrian ever hurts another human child." In a small apartment on Earth, Jake Morrison sat at his computer. He had been recording messages for the past 6 hours. Videos that would be sent to every human colony, every ship, every outpost. His face was hollow, his eyes red from crying. But his voice was steady and strong. "My name is Jake Morrison," he said to the camera. "The Zephyrians took my son Danny. They took him and 800 other children from New Haven. Today they murdered 10 of our kids just to prove they could." He leaned closer to the camera. "I want every human listening to this to understand something. This is not about politics, this is not about territory or resources, this is about our children, our babies, and no one, nowhere in this galaxy, hurts human children and lives to brag about it." Jake's voice got harder with each word. "Find them, hunt them, kill them all, every last one. Make them pay for what they did to Katie Williams, to Bobby Martinez, to Danny Morrison, to all our children." He turned off the camera and sat back in his chair. Outside his window, he could see ships launching from Earth's orbital platforms. Military vessels and converted civilian ships all heading for Zephyrian space. The hunt had begun. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, 837 human children waited for their parents to come save them. They did not know that humanity was about to paint the galaxy red with alien blood. They only knew that someone had hurt them. Someone had taken them from their families. Someone was going to pay. 6 months after New Haven, the galaxy had learned to fear the sound of human engines. Fleet Admiral Patricia Wells stood on the bridge of the massive dreadnought UES Retribution, watching 3,000 human ships move through space like a swarm of angry metal wasps. Behind her, officers worked at their stations with cold efficiency. No one smiled anymore. No one made jokes. They had work to do. "Admiral," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the Centaurian Republic. They're asking us to avoid their border systems." Wells did not turn around. Her eyes stayed fixed on the stars ahead. "Tell them we will go where we need to go. If they stay out of our way, they will be safe. And if they don't stay out of our way, then they will learn why the Zephyrians are already running." The fleet had grown larger every week. Ships from every human colony joined the hunt. Military vessels, cargo haulers converted to warships, even civilian pleasure craft mounted with weapons. Everyone wanted to be part of what was coming. They did not follow the old rules of war anymore. When they found Zephyrian colonies, they did not just attack the military targets. They destroyed everything: cities, farms, schools, hospitals. If it was built by Zephyrians, it died. The first colony they hit was called Zeph Minor. 2 million Zephyrians lived there, mostly farmers and their families. The colony had no military value, no weapons factories, no fleet bases, just gray-skinned aliens trying to grow food for their children. Captain Chris Thompson led the attack. His fighter squadron swept down on the colony like hawks hunting mice. They burned the fields first, then the storage buildings, then the homes. When Zephyrian civilians ran for shelter, the humans hunted them down in the streets. Thompson watched. A group of young Zephyrians hiding in a school building. They looked scared. They looked like children even though they were aliens. For a moment he hesitated. Then he remembered the broadcast from the Zephyrian throne room. He remembered Katie Williams falling to the floor. "Light it up," he ordered. The school building exploded in flames. When the attack was over, Zeph Minor was a dead world. Not one Zephyrian survived. The humans had made sure of that. But Thompson was not finished. As his fighters flew away, he activated the planet's communication systems. Every Zephyrian ship, every Zephyrian world within 50 light years heard the screams of the dying colonists. He wanted them to know what was coming. "This is for Katie Williams," he broadcast across all frequencies. "This is for Bobby Martinez. This is for Danny Morrison. This is for all the human children you took." The message repeated for 6 hours before the communication array finally burned out. News of Zeph Minor reached the Galactic Council within days. The Council was an ancient organization that tried to keep peace between the different species. They had rules about war, rules about civilians, rules about what civilized species could and could not do to each other. The humans had broken every single rule. Ambassador Stone sat in the council chambers, facing representatives from dozens of alien species. They all stared at him with mixtures of fear and disgust. Some looked like they wanted to run. Others looked like they wanted to attack him. "Ambassador Stone," the Centaurian delegate said, his voice shaking, "your species has committed genocide. 2 million innocent civilians are dead." Stone looked around the chamber calmly. "Were they innocent? They were part of the empire that kidnapped our children. That makes them guilty." "They were farmers," the delegate insisted. "They never hurt anyone. They paid taxes to the empire, they supported the government, they voted for the leaders who ordered the attack on New Haven." Stone's voice was flat, emotionless. "That makes them part of the war machine that killed our kids." The Altarian representative, a tall being with blue skin, leaned forward. "This cannot continue. Your species is out of control. You must be stopped." Stone smiled for the first time in months. It was not a pleasant smile. "Stopped by who? You? Your species has 12 ships and no weapons worth mentioning. The Centaurians? They have a defense pact with the Zephyrians, but they are too scared to honor it. Who exactly is going to stop us?" "The entire galaxy will unite against you," the Centaurian said. "Good," Stone replied. "That will save us the trouble of hunting you down one species at a time." The chamber fell silent. The alien delegates looked at each other nervously. They had expected the human ambassador to apologize, to promise that his species would show restraint. Instead, he was threatening them. Stone stood up from his chair. "I have a message for this council. Stay out of our way. Do not help the Zephyrians. Do not give them supplies, ships, or sanctuary. Because if you do, we will consider you part of the problem." "And then what?" the Altarian asked. "Then we will solve you the same way we are solving the Zephyrians." Stone walked out of the chamber, leaving the alien delegates to stare at each other in horror. They had thought humans were reasonable beings, civilized, predictable. They were learning how wrong they had been. Meanwhile, in the deep laboratories of Earth, Dr. Nathan Price had been busy. Very busy. His team worked around the clock, developing new weapons for the human fleet. They had started with simple improvements to existing technology. Better missiles, stronger armor, faster engines. But that was not enough. The Zephyrians had to pay for what they had done. Really pay. "Show me the test results," Price said to his assistant, Dr. Ellen Baker. Baker pulled up a holographic display showing a star system. "We call it a stellar disruptor. It sends a focused beam of exotic particles into a star's core. The particles interfere with nuclear fusion. What happens then? The star becomes unstable. Depending on its size, it either explodes as a supernova or collapses into a black hole. Either way, everything in the system dies." Price studied the display. "One weapon, one shot, billions of deaths. How many can we build?" "We have enough materials for 50 devices. But sir, using this weapon would be what?" Baker looked uncomfortable. "It would be the complete destruction of entire solar systems. Every planet, every moon, every living thing." Price nodded. "How long until the first one is ready?" 2 weeks. Make it 1 week. The first test came on a Zephyrian system called HFY. It had 3 planets and about 8 billion inhabitants. Most were civilians, but the system also housed a major Zephyrian fleet base. The human ship UES destroyer dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. It was a small vessel, barely large enough for a crew of 20, but in its cargo hold was something that could kill stars. Captain Roy Mitchell gave the order personally. He had volunteered for this mission after seeing the footage of the murdered children. His own daughter was only 6 years old. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face mixed with Katie Williams. The stellar disruptor fired once. A beam of invisible energy crossed space in seconds and struck the system's sun. For 6 hours, nothing seemed to happen. Then the star began to flicker. The Zephyrians on the 3 planets noticed the changes first. Their instruments detected massive fluctuations in solar output. Scientists scrambled to understand what was happening. Military commanders prepared evacuation fleets. But there was no time. The star exploded with the force of 1 trillion nuclear weapons. The explosion was so bright it could be seen from 50 light-years away. The 3 planets, along with their 8 billion inhabitants, were vaporized instantly. When the light faded, the HFY system was gone. In its place was an expanding cloud of radioactive gas. The news reached the Zephyrian homeworld within hours. Emperor Thexmore sat on his throne, staring at reports that made no sense. 8 billion of his people dead. An entire star system erased. How? He asked his military advisors. How did they destroy a star? We don't know, Your Majesty. Our scientists say it should be impossible. Thexmore stood up slowly. For the first time since the war began, he felt afraid. Send a message to the human fleet. Tell them we wish to discuss terms. Terms, Your Majesty? Peace terms. We will return their children, all of them, unharmed. The human response came back within an hour. It was delivered by Admiral Wells personally, broadcast across all Zephyrian communication networks. Emperor Thexmore, she said, her voice cold as space itself. You had your chance for peace. You chose to murder our children instead. Now you get to learn what happens when you hurt the wrong species. She paused, letting her words sink in. We don't want peace anymore. We don't want negotiations. We don't want your surrender. We want you extinct. Every Zephyrian in the galaxy, every world you've ever touched, every ship you've ever built, all of it gone. The transmission continued for another minute, but Thexmore stopped listening. He understood now what Admiral Vexithara had tried to warn him about months ago. The humans were not trying to win a war. They were trying to erase his entire species from existence. And they had the weapons to do it. Outside the Imperial Palace, Zephyrian civilians looked up at the night sky and saw new stars burning. Human fleets were moving through their territory like a plague, destroying everything they found. The hunt was almost over. Soon, there would be nowhere left to run. Zephyr Prime hung in space like a gray marble, protected by energy shields that could stop 1,000 warships. The Zephyrian homeworld had never been conquered. Its defenses had held against every enemy for over 2,000 years. Admiral Patricia Wells stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, studying the planet through the viewscreen. Somewhere down there, behind those shields, were the surviving human children. 623 kids who had been prisoners for almost a year. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, the planet's shields are at maximum power. Planetary defense systems are online. We're detecting over 500 orbital weapons platforms. Wells nodded. The Zephyrians had turned their homeworld into the most heavily defended planet in the galaxy. Every ship they had left, every weapon they could build was protecting this one world. How many Zephyrians are down there? She asked. Approximately 40 billion, ma'am. It's their most populated world. 40 billion. Wells thought about that number. Once it would have meant something to her. Once she would have tried to find a way to save civilian lives. But that was before Katie Williams died on camera. Before human children were taken from their beds and turned into slaves. Signal the fleet, she ordered. Begin the assault. 3,000 human ships moved toward Zephyr Prime like a wall of death. They had fought their way across the galaxy to reach this moment. They had destroyed hundreds of worlds. They had killed trillions of Zephyrians. Now they were here for the final battle. The Zephyrian defense fleet met them halfway. 2,000 alien ships, everything the Empire had left. The battle that followed lit up space like a second sun. Captain Chris Thompson led his fighter squadron through the chaos. Enemy fire filled the void around him, but he flew through it without fear. Death had stopped scaring him months ago. He had seen too much, done too much. All fighters focus on the shield generators, he ordered. Every shot counts. His pilots responded with deadly precision. They had been fighting this war for a year. They knew exactly how to kill Zephyrians efficiently. One by one, the orbital defense platforms exploded. The Zephyrian fleet fought desperately, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Human weapons had improved during the war. Human tactics had become ruthless and effective. When the last Zephyrian ship died, the planet's shields finally fell. Major Ryan Clark stood in the drop bay of a human assault ship, checking his weapon one last time. Around him, 500 Marines. Prepared for the ground attack, they wore black armor and carried weapons designed for close combat. "Listen up," Clark told his troops. "Intelligence says the children are being held in the capital city, underground bunkers heavily guarded. Our job is simple. Get in, get the kids, get out." "What about the Zephyrian civilians, sir?" a young Marine asked. Clark's face was hidden behind his helmet, but his voice was hard as stone. "What civilians? I don't see any civilians down there. I see the species that murdered our children." The Marines nodded. They understood. The dropships fell toward Zephyr Prime like black rain. Zephyrian ground forces tried to stop them, but human technology had advanced too far. The ships landed in the capital city and disgorged their cargo of death. Clark led, his unit through streets filled with fleeing Zephyrians. The aliens ran in panic, carrying their young, trying to find shelter. Once Clark might have felt sorry for them. Now he felt nothing. His Marines moved through the city with mechanical efficiency. They had orders to reach the detention facility where the human children were held. Anyone who got in their way died quickly. The underground bunker was 3 miles beneath the city. Clark's unit fought through 20 levels of Zephyrian guards. The aliens defended their positions bravely, but they were fighting humans who had nothing left to lose. When they finally reached the detention center, Clark felt his heart stop. The children were there, thin, scared, but alive. They sat in small cells wearing dirty clothes, their eyes wide with fear and hope. "Danny Morrison?" Clark called out. A small boy with brown hair looked up. "That's me. Your father sent us," Clark said, his voice suddenly gentle. "We're here to take you home." The rescue took 6 hours. The Marines had to fight their way back to the surface, carrying children who were too weak to walk. Some of the kids cried. Others were silent. All of them had changed during their year in captivity. Jake Morrison waited on the UES Vengeance, pacing back and forth in the hangar bay. When the transport ship docked, he ran toward it before the doors opened. Danny came. Out first. He was smaller than Jake remembered, thinner. But he was alive. Father and son ran toward each other. Jake picked Danny up and held him close, tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry," Jake whispered. "I'm so sorry it took so long." Danny buried his face in his father's shoulder. "I knew you would come, Dad. I knew you wouldn't leave us here." Around them, other families were reunited. Parents who had spent a year planning revenge finally held their children again. The joy was overwhelming, but it was mixed with something darker. The children had seen things. They had been hurt in ways that would never fully heal. Some flinched when adults moved too quickly. Others would not speak at all. Katie Williams was not among them, neither was Bobby Martinez. They were dead, along with 224 other children who had not survived their captivity. While the reunions continued, Admiral Wells received reports from across Zephyr Prime. The planet was dying. Human forces had not just defeated the military. They had destroyed everything. Cities burned from horizon to horizon. The orbital bombardment had poisoned the atmosphere. Radiation from broken power plants was spreading across continents. 40 billion Zephyrians lived on this world when the battle began. By the end of the day, none would be left alive. Dr. Nathan Price sat in his laboratory on Earth, watching the reports from Zephyr Prime. The stellar disruptor he had built was being prepared for one final use. They were going to destroy the Zephyrian sun, making sure nothing could ever live in this system again. He looked at the pictures on his desk. Katie Williams, smiling in her school photo. The other murdered children, innocent faces that would never grow up. "We did it," his assistant said quietly. "We got them all. Every last Zephyrian in the galaxy is dead." Price nodded, but he felt no satisfaction. No joy, just emptiness. "Yes," he said. "We got them all." But the victory felt hollow. Humanity had saved its children, but at a cost that changed them forever. They had become something the galaxy had never seen before, something that other species would fear for generations. President Carter received the final report 3 days later. Zephyrian Empire was extinct. Not just defeated. Extinct. Every world they had ever inhabited was now lifeless. Every ship they had ever built was destroyed. The species that had kidnapped human children no longer existed anywhere in the universe. The children were coming home. The war was over. Humanity had won. But as Carter looked out at the stars, she wondered what they had really accomplished. The galaxy was a quieter place now. Other species avoided human space. Trade agreements were canceled. Diplomatic relations were severed. Humanity was alone again, just as they had been before they reached the stars. But now, they were alone by choice. Other species were too afraid to get close. Jake Morrison sat on his porch on New Haven, watching Danny play in the yard. The colony had been rebuilt. The wheat fields were green again. Life looked normal. But it was not normal. Danny did not laugh as much as he used to. He had nightmares about gray-skinned monsters. Sometimes he would stop playing and just stare at the sky, as if expecting ships to come down and take him away, again. Lisa Morrison came out of the house and sat beside her husband. "Do you think we did the right thing?" she asked. Jake watched his son throw a ball for their dog. The boy was trying to be normal, trying to be happy. But Jake could see the shadows in his eyes. "We got him back," Jake said quietly. "We got all of them back. But at what cost?" Jake did not answer. He could not answer, because deep down, he knew the truth that no one wanted to say out loud. They had saved their children, but they had lost their souls. The species that had once dreamed of peace among the stars had become the thing that other species would tell scary stories about. The galaxy would remember what happened when someone hurt human children. They would remember, and they would be afraid, and maybe that was enough. Maybe being feared was better than being the victims. But as Jake Morrison watched his traumatized son try to play like a normal child, he wondered if they had really won anything at all. The stars were quiet now. The Zephyrians were gone. The children were home, and humanity would have to live with what they had become.